Well, the social cost of carbon is meant to convey an estimate of the long-term damages associated with additional carbon dioxide emissions and other greenhouse gases. So it's basically an estimate of non-market costs, similar to, say, what's the estimate of the costs associated with additional emissions of pollutants like sulfur dioxide. Well, the biggest problem is estimates of the social cost of carbon are now based on projections that go 3 centuries into the future. Now, if you step back and let's go back 300 years ago. So that's 1725. Just so everyone knows, George Washington was born in 1732. So it'd be another 7 years since he was even born. And Benjamin Franklin was a teenager working in his father's print shop. So imagine asking someone from 1725 to predict today's world. All the technologies we have, the number of people, the use of fossil fuels, everything. You'd probably say they wouldn't have a clue about what would be going on today. Well, similarly, we probably we can't predict accurately what's going to be, the world will be like 300 years from now. We don't know what the technologies will be. We don't know the state of the world. And frankly, some of the models go out 1,000 years. If you go back 1,000 years from now, that was a century and a half before Genghis Khan was around. So again, it's kind of crazy to try to assume that we can make accurate predictions about the future. So the other problem with the social cost of carbon is it imposes costs on U.S. citizens, residents, businesses, but none of the benefits would actually accrue to us, or very small percentages, because climate change is by definition a global issue. So when a state like New Jersey or New York promotes offshore wind, for example, and justifies it using the social cost of carbon alleged benefits over the next 3 centuries, well, their residents aren't going to see any of those benefits. They will just see higher costs. It is. Right now, the latest estimates of the social cost of carbon are around $200 a ton, which is roughly not quite $2 a gallon of gasoline equivalent. So, yes, if you start taxing everything, if you use the social cost of carbon either in, say, a cap and trade system, as states like California, Washington, and Oregon are doing, if you use it to justify very high cost electric resources, the way New Jersey has done for offshore wind, where reductions in carbon emissions supposedly account for over 60% of the total benefits of offshore wind, you end up with U.S. consumers paying far more for energy. Well, that has ripple effects through the entire economy because all goods and services produced in this country require energy. So essentially you're adding a big tax on everything that's inflationary and reduces economic growth. So it makes everyone worse off. Well, what's at stake is the foundation of the economy. What we need are ample supplies of affordable and reliable energy. That's what drives that's what drives the world economy. And that's what enables people throughout the world to live better lives. That's something that Energy Secretary Chris Wright firmly believes that energy is the key to improving people's lives. So if you make energy more expensive, less reliable, you're worsening people's lives, especially in developing countries. Now, is it too late to change? Of course not. Policymakers can adopt, stop using social cost of carbon estimates, which are really arbitrary because they boil down to assumptions and preferences of the modelers who make the estimates. And again, trying to make those estimates over the next 300 years, like what will happen to agricultural production, what will happen to the number of people dying from tropical diseases, it's just impossible to do that accurately. So what you need to do is step back, stop using the social cost of carbon to justify energy policies that are raising costs and reducing reliability. And what I would recommend instead is focus on R&D efforts to provide low emissions, low cost energy resources, such as nuclear power. By doing that, we can get emissions-free electricity and energy. But because nuclear power is reliable, that's what people need, and then you can transfer the technology elsewhere to developing countries that desperately need it. Well, again, this is because by definition, the social cost of carbon measures global costs and global benefits. So it's not just the U.S. And that's fundamentally different from other pollutants like, emitting poison into a river where it's very local. Instead, you're asking U.S. consumers and businesses to bear 100% of the costs, but they'll obtain virtually none of the benefits. Certainly none of the people today will. And it's a guess as to what benefits will accrue to people, future generations living hundreds of years from now, who, by the way, are supposedly going to be much better off than we are today anyway. And so that raises another ethical question. What sacrifices should today's generation make to further increase the welfare of future generations who we all expect will be much better off than us anyway? Well, again, I think it's exactly counter to that, because it's being used to promote unreliable and costly energy resources, especially wind and solar, which are intermittent generation, which require backup, either ironically from generally natural gas-fired power plants, or now people are saying battery storage, but the cost of that will be absolutely prohibitive. So it's really, you're promoting something that raises energy costs and reduces affordability, and it's going to make the current generation's well-being fall. Everyone's going to be worse off, except for the few people who are getting nice subsidies for their green energy projects. So, again, it's just counter to that entirely. And I think a better approach is, rather than using SEC estimates to justify expensive energy projects, step back and devote more money to basic R&D efforts to lower the costs of clean and reliable energy resources. Well, sustainability is one of those nebulous concepts that can't be measured. So, I think everyone wants a cleaner environment. Everyone wants affordable energy. Well, most people do. So I think what policymakers can do is basically just stop subsidizing unreliable energy resources, and that's not a partisan issue. I mean, that's Democrats and Republicans each have their own favorite technologies and energy forms they wish to subsidize. What I would again suggest is that rather than doing that, rather than trying to pick winners and losers via subsidies, which frankly don't work and have never worked, invest more in basic R&D efforts. And again, I think the future is nuclear power, especially modular nuclear plants built with standardized designs. That's the key. But for now, a transition relying more on natural gas, which is much cleaner than say coal, is a better strategy until we get more nuclear power on board.